claim any kind of responsibility.
We'll move on now to our last speaker, because there'll be plenty of time afterwards for more discussion. Introducing to you Salim. There's a lot of people who know you. The people from the various branches of PSC and other organisations meet together in a group known as Dump Veolia West London. It's people from the 6 London boroughs who are part of the West London Waste Authority, and we've been working together in all 6 boroughs along the same lines, right into the councils, right into the West London Waste Authority and so on. And Salim has been one of the main people organising that and hosting us and so on. So thank you very much, and thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks. I don't want to go over what the other speakers have said, but a couple of important things. The campaign against Veolia is a global campaign. So although, of course, I'm going to talk to you about what we're going to do what we can do in our localities, the 6 London boroughs, it's important to remember that what we're doing. It's important to remember that what we're doing is part of a global campaign and a global movement. And we're doing this not just across London, but we're doing it across the UK, Europe, and the rest of the world. The second thing I want to say is there are a lot of campaigns that demand our interest or our time, or people say to us we should get involved in. And myself, just speaking for myself personally, I hate going on suicide missions where someone stands up and says, look, this is the next campaign we've got to do, and actually, in a sense, you know, it's not been thought out, or it's not been well researched, or the tactics aren't, or the tactics and strategy aren't worked out. I think the difference about the Veolia campaign, as well as other key targets in the BDS campaign, the Veolia campaign is not a suicide mission, it's far from it. It's very well researched. I mean, you've heard speakers Michael and Simon talk about what's actually, in terms of, we know what's happening in terms of what Veolia is doing on the ground. We know the legal analysis. The legal analysis has been done over and over again. The publicity materials, you have, I think, some copies of that already on your chair, the postcards, the posters, the banners. So a lot of the publicity materials and thinking has already been done. And I think what we now need to do, and what we're trying to do across the 6 London boroughs, is to say, how can we apply that in a way which is something that we can tap into in terms of where we actually live. And the key issue we're facing is that across the 6 London boroughs, that's Ealing, Harrow, Brent, Richmond, Hillingdon and Hounslow, those councils have formed something called the West London Waste Authority. And that authority has asked for bids for a contract worth up to £485 million for residual domestic waste. So this is the waste that gets left over after recycling and whatever. And what we have done is to learn from the experiences of activists in other parts of the country and other parts of the world, and we formed a steering group of people from each of the London boroughs, and we've tried to work out how we go about this. So the first thing that we've done is a letter has now gone to the West London Waste Authority, signed by 576 people from the 6 London boroughs. We've checked the postcodes, we've checked the names to make sure they live in those London boroughs. But in terms of the West London Waste Authority, that is a lot of people. They have not had many letters on the issue of residual domestic waste. And 576 people who have actually all looked at the letter before they signed it. We didn't just stand outside corner shops asking people to sign a 2-line petition. We actually gave them a letter and said, would you put your name to this, would you put your postcode to this, and would you put your borough to this? So the campaign has already kicked off. The WLWA is well aware that there is a lot of local interest in this issue. Second thing we've done is we've already met with the West London Waste Authority and put our arguments across, and we were lucky enough to have Daniel McIver, who's a leading international human rights lawyer with us, and who's also a resident of Brent, explain to the WLDA why we believe that they should exercise their discretion, which they do have under local government regulations, to exclude Veolia on the grounds of grave misconduct. And that was a very interesting meeting, and there was a good interchange, and they did ask us questions about the legal analysis and why we thought Veolia could be excluded, and they asked us questions about Veolia and we answered. What is interesting from a tactical point of view, although our letter is absolutely concerned with what Veolia is doing in the occupied territories, there's two things when we looked in the faces of the people we were talking to in the West London Waste Authority. The two things that really hit home were the fact that Veolia operates essentially apartheid bus routes. So buses which Palestinians are not permitted either, as a matter of fact, to travel. That hit home because we made the point that the 6 London boroughs that we're talking about are successful multicultural boroughs. So how the hell can we have a company like Veolia which says one group of people can travel on a bus and another people can't on racial grounds or ethnic grounds? How can that company be allowed to be in the bidding process? And the second thing which really hit home, which is also covered in our letter, is that Veolia actually placed an advert for train operators for the Jerusalem Light Railway, which is blatantly racist. I mean, it asked for Hebrew to mother tongue standard and a record of military service. Well, there's two things. They could have asked for Hebrew to a standard sufficient to drive a train, but no, it had to be mother tongue standard. Not content with that, which obviously is going to rule out a vast section of Palestinian citizens of Israel, the requirement for military service, as we know, Palestinian citizens of Israel are not called upon to do military service. So they might as well have just put an advert saying Veolia wants operatives for the Jerusalem Light Railway, Arabs need not apply. And what I'm going to say is, of course, we are focusing in on all the things that Simon has covered, but we're also focusing in on those two things with the councillors as well, because that is the way to get them engaged, and then, of course, we're talking to them about the human rights issues. So, the letter we're sending is very carefully worded. It's been looked at by the lawyers. We're not asking the West London Waste Authority to do anything which would be illegal or ultra-various. We're giving them the route map by which they can legally make a decision to exercise their discretion to exclude Veolia from the process. We've reached a stage where we've sent in that letter, and this meeting is the first meeting. We're having it in Brent, but we will also hold meetings in West London, in Ealing and Richmond like this, because we now need your support and help to take the campaign forward. And there's a few things that we would really like people to think about and see if they could help us on. The first is, if you're a resident in one of the 6 London boroughs and you haven't signed that letter, then Liz is at the back, and I'm sure she'll be ready to take your name, postcode and borough. We need those 3 things, and if we can get more signatures, that will help. The other side of help that we really need is we need now to engage. We've focused on individuals. The next stage of our campaign is we want to focus on faith groups, trade union branches and political parties. We've already made some good headway on that. I think we're doing very good headway with the Greens, both here, I believe, in Brent and certainly in Ealing. But if there are people here who have contacts with faith groups, who they think would be willing to sign up to something which is all around human rights, it's about and asking the council, the West London Waste Authority, to ensure that they take human rights considerations into account when they form their decision, then please do that. We're forming, we already have contact lists for that, but the more organisations from civil society that we can get in its broadest possible terms, the better. So that's certainly one thing that people could help with. The second thing we're going to ask people to do is, we've sent a letter to the West London Waste Authority, and we've sent it to the director of the West London Waste Authority, their in-house legal counsel, and the members from each of the London boroughs who sit on the committee. The next stage we're going to do is we're going to ask the 576 signatories, and hopefully some more, if there are people here who haven't signed, to now send that letter to their own local councillor and ask to go and talk to their councillor to say, these are the issues, please read this letter, what are you going to do about it? Remember, councillors in the end, rely on being elected. Actually, turnout of council elections is not that great. And so when most people, don't go to see their councillor about much, I think. So this is a real opportunity to engage with a whole section of politicians, if you like, who we don't normally engage with. We try, of course, we always do lobbies of Parliament and whatever, and we shouldn't forget that in broader terms, many of these councillors will be leading lights in their political party or prospective parliamentary candidates, or go on to join think tanks or research organisations or whatever. So actually, as part of the broader struggle to get the narrative out there about the struggle for Palestinian rights and human rights, it's very important that we do that. And we know that people sitting down face to face with their counsellor or sending a personal message to their counsellor to say, I am a teacher, I've lived in this borough for 25 years, I would like to come and talk to you about Veolia, that will grab attention. How do we know that? We know that from the experience of the other campaigns. And we know that particularly in the experience in Ealing, where Veolia already had a contract with Ealing Council. Veolia was one of the 2 or 3 companies that were in the final running for a £300 million contract with Ealing Council, and they didn't get the contract. Now, the council won't tell us why they didn't get the contract, but we're very happy because if anything, if there was a company that was in pole position to win that contract, it should have been Veolia, and it didn't. And we know that many councillors contacted our supporters who had contacted them and came back to them to say, yes, I understand what you're saying, I've taken this up with council officials. That's the sort of pressure we've got to put on. And lastly, we do need, the steering group, Martin's one of them and Liz is another, has taken it to this stage, and we wanted to kick off the campaign so that when people came and we asked them to join it, it wasn't as if we were having to start something fresh and do all the heavy lifting. If there are people who would like to get more involved in the actual campaign and how we take it forward, for example, we could really do with people who are good at writing press releases or would like to deal with some stuff with the local papers. If you're good at organising, whatever you're good at actually, please let Liz know at the back and we'll sign you up for the steering group, because there's plenty of stuff to do, and anything that, the broader that we can have the steering committee, the more effective we can make the campaign.
I'll just say something. He asked if anyone wanted to be filmed. There's somebody here that hasn't asked anyone whether they want to be filmed and is filming. So could you just deal with that?
Excuse me, sir.
Ask him who he is and why he's filming.
I can do that. We, at the beginning of the meeting, explained who was filming, why they were filming, and how it was going to be used. Would you like to say the same thing about what you're doing, why you're filming, who you are, and what it's going to be used for?
Yeah, I just come to these events just to film, just to see what's going on.
Are you going to publish this at all? Else it's going to be published on YouTube.
Yeah.
And on Brent PSC website. Can you tell us where yours is going to be published?
Probably be on YouTube as well.
And any other website?
Ask him who he is.
He hasn't answered that. Who are you?
My name's Richard.
Yeah.
Richard who?
Well, I'd prefer to get on with the meeting.
Exactly.
I presume that.
I've been sat here quietly.
Yeah, you have.
Made a disruption, haven't fun.
Yeah, okay. We know you're Richard. We don't know where it's going to appear apart from YouTube.
I promise you, I'm not going to put it anywhere that would cause you any problems whatsoever.
Okay, I'm going to carry on with the meeting because I'd much rather not have a long debate with you. But move on. Can I just say what's happening at the moment with Brent? He talked about leading the
camera.
Pardon?
He hasn't got permission to film. His camera, please.
Well, he's only filming the speakers here.